we often fail to remember on this day is that this man did not stand alone. He was surrounded by thousands of people, men and women, black and white from 8 years old to 80, all standing together. The American Civil Rights Movement was one of the most important events in our history, and it was won entirely with peace. From the Montgomery bus boycott to the Freedom Rides, peaceful protesters shaped the movement. It changed us all, and it truly changed our nation, our race, and our world for the better. This is the story of peaceful protesting, and the story of the weapon that won the war. Flashback to 1950 in the Deep South. Things were different from how they are today. Black people and white people are separated by segregation. Segregation was when black people were treated worse simply because of the color of their skin. Everything from public facilities to vending machines were segregated or white only. Blacks were terrorized, ridiculed, and beaten. They were forced to work hard jobs for almost no money and in terrible conditions, very similar to slavery. Suddenly, in the early 50s, things started changing. The NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, began appealing to the Supreme Court to change racist laws and to create new laws that would change racist behavior. Cases like Brown v. Board of Education, which integrated all public schools. You may have heard of people like Ruby Bridges, a kindergartner who was the only African American in her school, or the Little Rock Nine, 9 black high schoolers who went to an all-white school and faced angry mobs every day. The Civil Rights Movement was not won because of laws alone. It was won by men, great men, revolutionary men. It all began in 1929 when Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th. His father, the Reverend Martin Luther King Sr., was a good friend and believer in the civil rights leader Howard Thurman, one of the early advocates for peaceful protesting. Thurman had traveled to India to consult with Mohandas Gandhi, who was the first source of information to King on peaceful protesting. After he had finished college, King entered the ministry and married Coretta Scott. He became fascinated with Gandhi and had read most of his books. In 1955, when Rosa Parks was arrested, King and his fellow Montgomery ministers helped to organize a Montgomery bus boycott, inspiring more than 17,000 people not to ride the bus for more than a year. King's success in Montgomery led to his involvement in almost every civil rights protest in the country, from the March on Washington and his I Have a Dream speech to the sit-ins. James Earl Ray assassinated King on April 4th, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee. King was in Tennessee to organize a rally for sanitation workers. This, I think, is what makes Martin Luther King great. His incredible belief that every person should be represented and equal. The fact that he died while fighting for a group of people who were so low in class is truly representative of how great he truly is. At the same time, there were also leaders who protested in a different way. People who didn't believe that peaceful protesting could win racial equality. One of these people was Malcolm X, a great leader, as great as Dr. King, but his methods were very different. Malcolm X was an incredibly influential spokesman for the Nation of Islam, a radical Islamic group whose entire philosophy was based on white hatred and on racial hatred against whites. Malcolm X spoke out loudly against Martin Luther King and peaceful protesting, saying that the only way to win equal rights was through fighting back physically. Malcolm X later changed his views on racism. He realized that it was not white people as a whole who were racist, but the entire social atmosphere of the U.S. that encouraged racism in whites. He began to accept all people who were committed to achieving equal rights for blacks. With this adoption of peace and equality, he became a much larger threat to the white supremacy groups. Malcolm X was assassinated on February 21st, 1969. Ironically, he was not assassinated by whites, but by 3 followers of the Nation of Islam. While Malcolm X didn't win equality, he did help to prepare the country's black population for the civil rights movement, giving the blacks a sense of righteousness, a sense of defense. Peaceful protesting and demonstration didn't come to the movement on a large scale until 1955 in the Montgomery bus boycott. However, it existed long before it came to the American movement. It all started in India. In the 1920s and 1930s, a middle-aged lawyer named Mohandas Gandhi led the entire nation of India, which was a colony of Britain at the time, to independence using only peaceful protesting. Gandhi proposed the idea of mass civil disobedience, or the peaceful breaking of laws. This involved mass boycotting, picketing, and marches. The main point of civil disobedience was absolute nonviolence. This worked very well, because it got the media's attention and framed the British government for the enemy. For when the people would protest, the British government would shoot at and beat people almost to death, but they would never fight back. This movement truly united the people of India. It was the first time they had stood up as one and defied something. Finally, after long years of protest and resilience, India prevailed over England and gained their independence. Probably the most famous mass peaceful demonstration in the U.S. was the first. It truly set the foundation for all of the others to come. It was the Montgomery bus boycott. The boycott was led by Dr. King and the other by Dr. Martin Luther King and the other members of the ministers of Montgomery, but it was started by someone else. There is a side of the Montgomery bus boycott that is not told as often as it should be. You may have heard of Rosa Parks and what she did. What people often forget is that Rosa Parks was not the first person to fight against bus segregation in Montgomery. On March 2nd, 1955, 9 months before Rosa Parks was arrested, 15-year-old Claudette Colvin refused to give up her seat to a white woman. The police were called and were told to get that thing off the bus. Still, Colvin refused. She had learned about the Constitution. 2 policemen ended up dragging her off the bus as she screamed, "It's my constitutional right." Colvin became an overnight sensation, and the NAACP agreed to help her in her court case. The young Reverend Martin Luther King made his debut in the movement when he came to help her in court. He suggested that Colvin join the NAACP Youth Department. There, she met Rosa Parks, the secretary of the NAACP. Colvin was found guilty of all charges in her hearing, and after that, the NAACP just sort of dropped her. They couldn't take her case any further, and were worried that she was over-emotional and unpredictable. She was too young and unstable to be a role model, and the NAACP was looking for someone they could build a protest around. They found that person in Rosa Parks. On December 1st, 1955, Parks refused to give up her seat to a white man and was arrested. The news of her arrest finally got around to E.B. Nixon, chairman of the Montgomery branch of the NAACP. Nixon was the one who originally came up with the idea for a boycott following Parks' actions. The original idea was a one-day boycott on December 5th. It was an enormous success, and they decided to continue until segregation on the buses was made illegal. The boycott went on for a year and 15 days. Can you imagine having to walk everywhere you went for a year? No matter how far it was, you walked. To school, to work, to the store, and back again. After around 3 months of boycotting, the Montgomery government wasn't going to change any laws. So a man named Fred Gray, the lawyer who defended Claudette Colvin, suggested the NAACP sue the city of Montgomery to say that bus segregation was against the Constitution, meaning that it isn't right, the law needs to be changed. The NAACP agreed, so Gray began to look for someone to testify in court. Parks was ruled out because she had recently been in court herself. Gray eventually decided on Claudette Colvin and 4 other women. The case, Crowder versus Gale, went all the way up to the biggest court in the country, the Supreme Court. Finally, the Supreme Court ruled segregation on public buses unconstitutional. It was the first major victory in the movement that was won with only peaceful demonstration. There were many other movements, many other actions taken in the civil rights movement, including sit-ins and the freedom rides. In the end, we won. Peaceful demonstration won. Our nation is forever changed for the better. However, this victory came at a very high price. People died, great people, and not just in the civil rights movement, but in other movements like this. Gandhi, Malcolm X, and King all died for a cause that they believed in. They all accepted that this might happen. This is the cost they were willing to pay. These men stood on the shoulders of giants, on the work and the suffering of all the people who fought for what they believed in, for what is right. And, as King said, these leaders and the work of people like Martin Luther King, we have become closer to reaching the promised land. Slowly, we edge closer. We have peaceful protesting to thank for that, Gandhi to thank, King to thank, Malcolm X, Claudette Colvin, E.D. Nixon, and the thousands of